first time you literally got to have some of the conversations
We're here at the Black
on a
Box,
regular basis,
posting up live.
have it broadcast to other people around the country, around the world, whatever. So it should be very interesting. Well, I'll give you a chance to tell the people a little bit about your background, how you came on this information, how you got to be where you found the knowledge that you are.
Well, first of all, let me correct something. I am not a professor. I am a lifelong student of life and nature. As I learned, I pass the information on. I have learned also in my journey that there are people that will listen to you, accept the information, and even follow through and check out the things that I'm saying. And then there are those that will not. And guess what? Both is fine. Because everyone's on their own personal journey. And I got started years ago, way before I even met Phil. My husband and I were avid readers, and we read everything. And I had a good friend that I grew up with, and she had purchased, she had some art, and Philip True was the one that was called to her home, and he was helping her to hang her artwork. And he was talking to her about all of this information, and then she stopped him and said, "My best friend, she talks just like you do." He was just really surprised, and uh, she introduced us, and then he came over, and he was, I would say, he was just surprised to see all of the books that my husband and I had and what we had read. And that was the beginning of our coming together. A few years back, a few years after that, he asked me to come in and sit with him to talk about all of this information that's laid out here on the table, which I had all of this information at home, and I knew about it, so that's how we got started. And my journey has always been to learn. That's why I call myself a student of life. And I had great teachers, my grandma, my mother, my dad, and they have always guided me in my path of learning. And that's just who I am. Hey, Bill.
Okay. There's something you said repeatedly I think is very important. Reading. I like to use the phraseology, the lie is buried in the library. People that look like me tend to walk past the library every day searching for the bank because they fail to understand real knowledge is where your power lies. Knowledge is power. Power is the ability to define reality and have other people accept your definition as though it were their own. Now, let me break that down. When we as an African people left the continent voluntarily or through force, somehow we got to the middle of the Atlantic and our names changed, our identification changed, we became something other than what we were created to be. Now, this goes back to when you name something, you take dominion over it. So naming something is very important. All people on this earth get their name from their land mass from which they derive. We are the only people who identify ourselves by a color or by someone else's definition. And once you do that, you have now become what they determined you are as opposed to what the Creator intended you to be. I think one of the things we want to do just to establish a point of reference. all people on this earth walking around today derived from an African woman. Science has proven this. I have the documentation, Newsweek and other articles saying when they did the DNA at Harvard and other places, the only people or person who had the DNA necessary to make all the people, meaning Asian, Caucasian, Indian, Eskimo, all of the people that we identify today as subgroups of the Homo sapiens sapiens. The only person that has the DNA necessary to make all of us came from an African woman. Now, if that were the case, then Dolores is about to pull up something that's crucial for us to understand something. Because we have went to school, especially a lot of us that have went to what I call this education system. And we have been led to believe that we are inferior somehow to another people based upon the melanin in our skin or our hue. So I think this is a perfect opportunity to introduce one of the greatest scholars, African scholars of our time, Sheikh Anta Diop. Dr. Diop was a physicist, a linguist, an Egyptologist, and wrote many serious books. But one of the books that you really need to have in your library is a book called Great African Thinkers. Great African Thinkers, the very first or second chapter. Is that the second chapter or the first chapter?
As far as the volume?
No, but where that law, Glover's law is.
Oh, that's in the second.
Second chapter? Okay. Check this out. Glover's law. Now, keep in mind, this is a law. This is not a theory. So this is based in something that's not negotiable.
This is a law of nature.
Glover's law, which would also appear to be the application to the humans, laying it down that warm-blooded animals evolving in a warm human climate will secrete a black pigment or a melanin. So how does that apply to what we're talking about? Mankind, we know from scientific research, all mankind originated in and around the equator, around Tanzania, Uganda, Kenya, part of Africa. That's on the equatorial part of the globe. Okay? Now, Glover's law says anything, all animals, all mammals in that part of the world on the equator will secrete a substance called a melanin, which gives you a hue or a dark pigmentation to your skin. Now, let's go one step further. In the Civilization of Barbarism book by Sheikh Anta Diop, he breaks it down a little further. Humans born around the Great Lakes region, almost on the equator, is necessarily pigmented and black. Glover's law calls for warm-blooded animals to be pigmented in a hot and humid climate. All the other races derive from the black race by a more or less direct filtration, meaning when you left that part of the earth and began to what we call
Migrate.
okay, or exodus to other parts of the globe, your skin adapts to the climatic conditions. If you're in a cold climate, you're going to produce less of a chemical called 70-hydrochloronol. 70-hydrochloronol makes vitamin D. We need to be very clear. So there is then no connection or no affiliation between melanin and brain cells, because that's not what the skin does. And we need to tell our that when they start kindergarten. Because we have been misled to believe bell curve and stork and all these other white theories that we are inferior to Asian and white people based upon melanin in your skin. If we knew your skin doesn't produce brain cells, that eliminates that possibility. That's null and void. We need to be very clear. We have been separated from knowledge. If you think about the experience of slavery and colonization, what did it do to people that look like me? The first thing they did is kept you from reading. Why? Because knowledge is in books. If you can read, you can then go back and gather the information. So we are not short on capacity, we are short on availability.
Right.
On top of that, I'm going to go back just a little bit further as far as nature is concerned. And Dr. Diop, he said something that was very profound. It's right in the middle of everything, but it's just a little paragraph. There's 2 paragraphs. He says, nature could have presented itself in an opposite way. Humanity could just as easily have been born not in Africa, but in Europe. If this had been the case, the first man would have been pale of skin, that is to say white. And if man had gone from Europe to Africa in the conditions of prehistoric life, that man would have either darkened in Africa or disappeared. Okay? But nature doesn't ever do anything strictly by chance. The color black acts as a protection of the organism, talking about the human body or any body that has melanin, okay? If man was first born in Africa and had not been black, he would not have survived. Because of the nature of where the earth is, where we are within the galaxy of the Milky Way, where we are in accordance to where our sun is and to where we are, and the equator being the invisible line around the whole middle of the earth.
Okay.
And the UV rays that are coming down, so the organism / humans had to have some type of protection from those UV rays, which was melanin. And that's why we survive. My son has a saying that if you don't watch it, you look at non-melanated people, and what's that other phrase? Adina K? I always say non-melanated people. You say
Caucasian.
no when you said non-Caucasian, right? But anyway, the thing about it is these people, you see in today's time, there's a very, very, very high percentage of non-melanated people with a very light skin who are the women always sun tanning and doing all these things to their skin, and they develop what? The skin cancer.
Skin cancer.
Yeah. Melanated people get skin cancer too, but our bodies are protected in such a way that there's not a lot of things that you can do because our bodies will actually heal itself if you give it the chance.
Right.
Okay? That's all there is to it. It's really quite simple, and as my husband used to say, life is very simple. It's people who complicate it.
Right.
Oh, one more thing on this same page. He says here, we can fix the origins of humanity at 5.5 million years ago and even further. I have other documentation that takes it even back further. And where is, okay, your, Dr. Carey, he says that there was no developmental stages of man. So man has always been here, period. Didn't go through being a monkey, being this, being that. He said man has always been here, and that man was black.
Right.
That's all there is to it. It's Dr. Carey's documentation. You can check that out for yourself.
Right.
So, I just wanted to get the ancient stuff, and you go.
Well, I think that's a good place to start, because one of the things we don't do very well, when we talk about history, we don't talk about history in terms of dates and times. And if you don't date something, the story of man and man's endeavors on this earth and how he came to know what he knows is what history is. We have been learning his story as opposed to history. And there is a big difference between when non-melanated, what you now call Caucasian people, and Caucasian comes from the Caucasus Mountains, and when man left Africa and finally went up to that region of what we call now Europe. And keep in mind, let's back up. What is the definition of a continent?
Oh, like a tectonic plate, a big piece of land that's one piece.
Thank you. A large mass of land surrounded by water. Okay? So my question becomes this. How then did Europe become a continent? It's not surrounded by water.
Uh-oh.
Huh? We have always said because we allow somebody else to define our reality. But if you look at a map, Europe is an extension of Asia.
Right.
Okay? It is not a continent.
Right.
But if you want to become a power broker in the world, you're going to take your part of the geography and make it something that realistically doesn't fit the definition. That's why we're talking about laws here and not theories and beliefs and myths.
Right.
Because if you deal with straight science and laws, then Europe is really Western Asia.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
Now, the question becomes, how did people get to any of these places? Why did people first leave Africa and go to Asia? Because my Muslim brothers like to tell the story of the Asiatic black man. Okay? But by them not being thoroughly grounded in real history, they need to understand, yeah, there was and still is an Asiatic black man, no doubt. But originally, he came from another part of the earth. So the question becomes, why did man leave Africa and go to any of these places? I want to present that to my sister because she, I know, has the answer to that question. Why would man, if you're in the part of the earth that's all you're doing good, why would you leave and go somewhere else?
One of the
Why?
main reasons. Okay?
Go ahead.
One of the main reasons that I call them just the little ancient black people, okay? When they began to migrate, to move, number one, they determined what they were going to do about, number one, observing what was around them, okay? And so they observed what stars were in the sky and at what time. Because the numbering, the labeling of the stars, they saw a certain set of stars at a certain time, all the time, every year. That gave them the information that, okay, we need to go here because the water source is good. Or we need to go here because the plant life is good. Where that we can eat. When they observe all of nature's different animals, animals migrated too. And the reason why they migrate is because of fire. They migrate because the fire zaps up all of the water and there's no food. If the animals don't have food and water, the people don't either. That's how they came to migrate constantly. Because of the nature of the earth and what was happening, you have dry time and wet time. Those were the only two times, as we get to how they labeled day and night time and so forth. Not that story that's written in that other book. Okay? There was just 2 seasons, wet and dry. Sometimes the dry season lasted so long they had to move because the dry season dried up the soil, dried up the seeds and things that grew, dried up the tubers. Tubers are food that grows underground, like potatoes, okay? Like any of the foods that you know that grow underground, like carrots. All of that stuff grows underground, and the botanical name is tuber. So when all of that is gone, and they see the animals are leaving too, because the animals are going like, okay, we don't have any water here, it's time to go. And who's more knowledgeable than animals as far as surviving?
Right.
They know what to do. They smarter than we are
Right.
now. You know, you have to observe that.
They were our teachers on
Yeah,
what the food is.
they really were. And so this is one reason why they spread out. Now the migrational period, there was more than one. And each migration took at least 25,000 years. Because in one set of 25,000 years, that's how you got the information about where those planets was rotating and what they saw and when they could plant. When they got to the point of planting seed to grow food,
Right.
it took 25,000 years. Then the next migration took another 25,000 years because they took that information even further because they noticed other things that added to that information that their ancestors gave them. And then the next migration took another 25,000 years. There's a document, you know it, that says that the people who you call Egyptians now, they were the original little people before they got up north to that part of Africa. And they said, our ancestors has passed this information down and we have been observing and learning what we see up there as to what to do down here.
Right.
Hence that phrase, as above, so below.
Let me give you a reference for that, exactly what she's talking about. The document you need to get is by a gentleman named Dr. Albert Churchward. He is a 30th-degree Mason, past master, and a surgeon in England in the 1800s. This book is called The Origin and Evolution of Freemasonry, based upon the origin and evolution of the human race. And chapter 2 of this book talks about exactly what Dolores was talking about. He said the first people were these small people that they call today pygmies. Keep in mind the Hutu and the Twa. The pygmy is actually a kind of a derogatory term to define these small people.
It was a derogatory.
It still is, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not a good name.
But they said these people are the original people from which all people on earth derive. These are the people that became later on the Egyptians that we like to talk about of today. And all the monuments and things that the Egyptians built, they actually came from these people. If you get into
And when you go to Egypt now and you look at the different drawings, which are called hieroglyphs, you'll see that this ancient person called the Egyptian has many hieroglyphs that depicts who their first god was. And guess who it was? That little Twaman. That's who the symbol of Bes is. Bes is a Twa. They know, the original Egyptians know that they came from the equatorial site on the earth before, within those 25,000 years, each migration, they set up a house up there. But not before they had to learn what they needed to know from their mother. And their mother, on the face of the earth, in that Horn area, was Ethiopia. Now, our good sister, what's her name? She wrote those wonderful Ethiopians. She calls, she says, Egypt is the daughter of Ethiopia. And there are just as many pyramids in Ethiopia. But we'll get into how that all came to be later, because that's going to take us all the way back to the stellar cult. And the stellar cult is what I'm talking about. They observe the stars, the movement of the stars. And you know, the North Star. The North Star is the tail star and the Big Dipper.
Yeah.
The Big Dipper. The last star up there, and it's very bright, that's your North Star.
Okay.
Okay?
I can pick the Big Dipper out.
We all can. And you can see it.
Next week?
You can see it on both the southern hemisphere and the northern hemisphere.
What's getting ready to happen Saturday? Of significance? Because you called me up one year and said, do what? Go outside and look at the sky, and what will you see?
You're going to see Orion.
The 3 stars in Orion's belt will appear in the eastern horizon on the 21st of December, which is Saturday. So it's supposed to be nice and sunny here on Saturday. No one should have any reason why Saturday evening, if you go out and look at the eastern sky, you will see 3 stars that are as bright and look like they are as close to you as these 3 lights in this building. They are unusually close and unusually bright. This begins in the northern hemisphere, the winter solstice, but also it's signaling something that you're getting ready to celebrate on the 25th. This is the 3 kings. We 3 kings of Orient are blah blah. Okay? And your Jesus being born, God's son, on the 25th of December, which is a fact. That is scientifically correct. The sun moves across the horizon. On the 21st, it will stop moving. It will sit there for 3 days. In ancient time, when the people saw something stop moving, especially for 3 days, they would think it was dead. On the 25th, the sun begins to move back up on the horizon. We go from the shortest day, and the days start getting longer for people that don't quite understand what I'm saying. Okay? That means that the sun is born again. Now, let's take this a little deeper, because I know this is about to upset some people's holiday. All the things in the universe we claim to have been created by what? God. So then God's son would be born on the 25th, which is Christmas. That is a fact. If you see it walking on water, if you were in Los Angeles, which I lived there for 20 years, and you were down in Santa Monica Beach, at the end of the day, you would see those rays walking across the ocean. Those are the rays of God's sun as it sets. S-U-N. It comes up in the eastern sky on the Horus rising or the horizon. It is born every day. It dies every night. It is born again every morning. Now, why is this important? Because I don't want to upset anybody's Christmas and Santa Claus. Because there's a big difference between knowing what the sun is doing and Santa Claus. We need to not get those things confused, okay? If the sun does not rise, what happens on the earth? What happens even when the sun goes down at night? Isn't it dangerous? And it's cold. Huh? So the sun is the thing that gives its rays or its light so we may live. Huh? Isn't that in the scriptures? God's Son gives this life so ye may live. That is a part of what the doctrine tells you. And if it does not give its rays, you will not survive. Think about this. Plant life will not grow without the sun. You cannot function without the sun. So then we need to understand all the things on this earth are dependent upon some pretty basic things. The earth, that's the mother, Mother Earth. The sun, water, and air. Earth, air, fire, water. Those are what the ancients thought of as the supernatural forces. They're still supernatural today. Tornadoes, hurricanes, that's the wind.
Right.
You can't control it. It can bring life and it can destroy life. So think about this. See, we fail to understand. Early man was navigating this planet with a stick. They never axed yet. They hadn't created fire yet. And they surely didn't have weapons, i.e. guns. So for early man to imagine that God looked like him would have been the furthest thing from his mind when he understood he was literally the weakest thing on the earth. You can be destroyed from a spider, a snake, the wind, the water. Anything out here that comes along could impact your existence. Okay? And if the sun doesn't come along and create fruit and plant life, etc., you have nothing to eat. Now, this also goes back to what Dolores was talking about. That 26,000 years is what we call the great year. But in layman's terms, let's break that down. That is literally the sun going through all the constellations of the zodiac. And in order for it to make that cycle complete one time, takes 25,827 years. That's called the great year. Now, when you break that down into 12, which is what you call your zodiac, let's back up a little bit. Originally, there was 7 lights in the heavens that people observed and was guided by. These are the non-setting or never-setting stars. The reason they needed things to be constant, because as you are navigating on this planet, you need to have a reference that you can trust. Now, think about this, because all of us are solar people. We do all of our calculations and everything using a sundial. Okay? That's how you know this stuff is way older than what you've been led to believe, i.e. the pyramid. Because the pyramid, along with the other 2 pyramids sitting on the Giza Plateau, are in perfect alignment with the 3 stars in Orion's belt. Now, if you weren't observing the stars, how would you know that? And how would you know to put that building in the center of planet Earth? You'd have to know the circumference of the earth before you know how to put it right there. Number 1. So you'd have to have traversed the earth before you knew the circumference. You feel me? Wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Huh? Now, maybe I'm confused, but I think when the age of discovery, when white people was in boats leaving Europe trying to get to the new land, I thought the earth was flat. Huh? Isn't that true?
Let's back up just a little bit. And let me just back up just a little bit. Because when you talk about our people, because white folks are our people. But it took them several years to mutate to being white. Okay. But when you talk about the Caucasian to find the new land, okay, your time frame has got to move up a little bit.
Okay.
That's all I gotta say. Your time frame has to move up a little bit because it becomes confusing when you leave, say, like Tortor says, when you look at the pyramids, and we're talking about the people from the stellar cult, which is those that observe the stars in order to reckon time. Okay, they're the original builders of those buildings, the pyramids. And we're talking about 890 to a million years ago. Now, when you talk about the white man coming up to find, what do you call it, coming to find new stuff, okay, you got to move that timeline from, say, a million years all the way up to about 50,000 years. That's it. Because they were never around doing all of this other stuff. Because we have not mutated to the sense of being white. Now, when you lose your melanin, you tend to lose your melanin because our people migrated to different parts all over the globe.
Why?
But when they got stuck, due to half of that 25,000 years is 13,000, that's when the earth is rotated in such a way that you have an ice age. They got stuck, and ice ages lasted quite a long time. As you are in those regions where the ice age is, you begin to lose your melanin because you don't have enough sunlight to keep that polymer, because melanin is a polymer, means it's got several sides within the bloodstream. So when you don't have that, you begin to lighten up. The longer that you stay in an area where it is extremely cold, like an ice age, the longer you stay there, okay, you won't go through those changes, but whoever you mate with, and those children are going to come out more different than what you are. They will begin to be born with the thinner nose and the thinner lips, because when you live in a region where it is extremely cold, you know this from being right here now. Can't hardly breathe when you go outside and it's real cold, can you? Can you? Anyone? You cannot breathe. It hurts when you take in cold air. That actually hurts your lungs. So you develop the thinner nostrils. You develop the thinner lips. Your hair begins to straighten because there's nothing there to keep that melanin that actually makes your hair grow to be the tight curls and stuff. You've lost that. Therefore, you actually have mutated into what we call the white man. Now, in today's world, 2019, I skip back and forth all the time. But in today's world, okay, the changes are still going on because the DNA and the genome workup of genomes, they have no black blood. They don't have the black genes or anything because it's been born out. It's been born out. So you do have some true white folks now. They're going around saying that we have found out that our ancestors are the Neanderthals. Okay, so what? Just like Dr. Diop says, he says there was 6 species of humans, okay? And the Neanderthal was one of those. But they were all from that melanated person. And they died out. They died out because of, when you look at, take a story like Frankenstein, you're getting all of the best body parts to go to this thing that you're creating. But in the end, because it wasn't born of human, you know, it died out. Because we should have a whole bunch of Frankensteins walking around here with these crazy people always putting stuff together. You hear what I'm saying?
Yeah. They made a pig man in China.
Well, the thing about it is they are beginning to experiment so much with the genomes. That's what makes up your DNA, and you know, with the chromosomes. You know, we are here with 22 plus 1, 23 chromosomes possessed by the female, 23 chromosomes possessed by the male. Okay, And when you look at the genome spectra there, females have the X and males have the Y. And when you look at them closely under a microscope, you'll find that that X is very big and that Y is pretty little. It really is, because it doesn't carry the genetic information that a fetus needs. It helps to make that fetus, but that fetus is going to get just about everything that it needs from that X chromosome, in other words, from that mother. There's certain things it will get from the Y chromosome, which the father carries. For instance, it depends on the parent. You can have XX, you can have XY, you can have YY, and if like I know I carry a lot of Y chromosomes because I produce nothing but boys.
Okay.
I got one X in there. I got a daughter.
So, to say that knowledge, or we have came into new knowledge, or we have really have less knowledge.
You know what? As you learn, you are always going to find something new. And this is something that I really stress is that you have to keep moving forward. Don't get stuck on the old, because there's something in the new that's going to validate what was old, and it's your job to take it even further to find out even more. You know? So, Dr. Clark said it. He said, we have brought you guys. He said this in a lecture. We have brought you as far as we can. It is your time to pick up the baton and run with it. Dr. Ben says the same thing. I only know so much about religion. But it's your time to pick up that baton and learn even more. So you don't stay stuck. Many of our people are stuck. But don't stay there. You have, as long as you have breath in your body, SHU, we'll talk about that later, SHU, as long as you have breath in your body, your duty as a human being is to learn as much as possible. And then you pass that information on. And when I say learn, that means it's hard work. You gotta do the reading, you do the research, you do the reading, you check all of the sources, you gotta do the reading. It's hard work. I've been reading since 19 something. It's just like the 70s, okay? And I've been learning more and more and more. I've learned more about the human body as science has progressed and changed a lot of things, okay? Because, you know, things are always progressing and you have to keep up with them.
Right.
If you don't, you're going to be stuck and you're going to be left behind.
But I think, to kind of answer the young man's question, we as a people have definitely regressed. And if knowledge is power, how much time do we spend seeking knowledge? Most of the time, I'm going to use a saying from a scholar, his name is Naim Akbar. His book is called Visions for Black Men, although it applies to women. It says, boys play with toys, men build things and leave a legacy. So let's do the test. Which is bigger, your library or your toy box? If you got more tennis shoes and cars and DVDs and stereo and gold chains and nonsense than you do books, you're a boy. Because knowledge is found in books. We go past the library every day trying to get to the bank because we don't understand what real power is. The richest of the rich in the black community are billionaires and white people have trillions of dollars. So in proportion, you don't have any money. But we think Oprah is all that in a bag of chips. We think these athletes, all the athletes out here that we look up to every day as our heroes and sheroes, play for white-owned teams. They making millions and the owners are making billions, and we don't get it. Two of the things that are the worst investment you could ever make in your life is a car and jewelry. And every time we get some money, what do we go do? Buy a chain to put around your neck. You fought for hundreds of years to get out of chains, and now you go buy them with diamonds in them, with gold. You can't wait to get chained back up. You don't get it at all. You go buy a car. When you leave the lot, it depreciates 1/3 the day you drive it across the curb. You buy things that appreciate, you lease things that depreciate. Every have owned them. First of which, they're going to break. So if you have a Rolls Royce, you tell me, how many Rolls Royce repair shops do you know about in Kansas City? Tell me where one is. That means that you're going to pay through the nose for whoever has to work on your car, because there ain't that many people capable of working on that car. So you're in deep trouble. Now, let's go one step further. When you decide to sell it, how many people do you have that's going to buy it? See, I had one. So I'm telling you what I know. It was a problem to get it fixed, and it was clearly a problem to sell it. Because the average person out here driving a Chevy, if you came along and said, dude, I have a good deal on a Rolls Royce, they're not gonna buy it. Even if you to them, the insurance is higher, the tires are higher, everything about that car costs more money. So I'm telling you, it's a bad idea. But that's not what we think, because we busy chasing the carrot, not understanding knowledge is what you need to be looking for. Now, if you go to the education system, i.e. the schools, the first thing you don't know is anything about yourself. You learn about every other people on the earth, and you don't know jack about you being an African. Matter of fact, when you talk to the average black person on the street and say, I want to go to Africa, they look at you like you crazy. They don't understand all the Fortune 500 companies in the world have businesses in Africa. The wealth of the world is found in Africa. Cobalt, the stuff you need to make every computer and every cell phone, every electronic device on the earth is in Africa. But that's not what we're trying to do. That's not where we're trying to go. That's not where we're trying to have a business, because we don't understand anything about what real power is. The future. Let me give you an example, because I talked to some young people about business. I said, if you're going to have a business, you're going to be an entrepreneur, what would be the better idea? To have a business in the city or to have a business in Africa? Africa's undeveloped. So I don't care if you're a mason, if you make highways, you have a better chance of building. You could build highways for your lifetime, your son's lifetime, your grandchildren's lifetime in Africa, and you still would not run out of opportunities. That goes for plumbing, electricity, anything that you now doing here, trying to get a job. You could have a career over there doing this and be wealthier than you could ever imagine. But again, we don't get it. So let's go back to some of the things that we need to talk about that would make more sense.
Can we take a break?
Yes.
Can we
Can we
take a break?
take,
Yes,
take
you can.
5?
Okay.
Take a break. You had a question?
Can I get you to hold on to the microphone? You got to Yeah, just speak up so that we can hear.
I thought it was on what?
Right.
No, yeah, go ahead. What do you want to say?
I was
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
the knowledge utilize like the capacity of our brain, of what some things that our brain has in it to where the accessing what's in the brain.
I'm not quite sure what you're asking.
Um,
That vitamin D.
Let me kind of answer it this way. You know that the human brain, you only use 10% of your brain, right?
right.
So if you just understood that if you're only using 10% of the capacity of your brain, then you can imagine how much more information you could absorb had you had the opportunity and the exposure. Why is it that Asian children, for the most part, are much more intelligent than our African American and the average white child? What are they doing different than what we're doing?
They've been taught.
That's all. It's relative.
They've been taught things that and shown in birth.
You said the magic word. They start teaching their children in the womb. We start teaching our children at kindergarten. Okay? Do you understand how much your brain grows from the time you come out of the womb until the first 3 to 5 years of your life is the most impactful time of your life? So the more information that you're exposed to during that period, the more you could absorb. You have to understand how the brain works. The brain is like a giant bunch of fingers. And the more you attach these fingers, the more connections you make. The less attachments or connections you have, the less brain capacity you have. An example, if you were to take a human being and never expose them to light, by the time you get to be 15, you will be blind. You will never be able to see. Because your brain never wired that part of your anatomy so that your eyes would ever work. A good example, we now have things that can go down deep into the ocean, miles down, where it's all black. And are not all those things down there blind? They don't have eyes because they have no need to see anything. It's black. The body is just like everything else in nature. It's going to adapt to what it needs to do to survive. We can take this down to a cellular level. You are billions of cells that make you who you are. And every one of those cells has the capacity to learn and to think on its own because every one of them cells is in the business of living. Huh? So then it must be intelligent. Now, the problem is when you start doing things to and with these cells that cause them not to operate at their best, now you become less healthy. Do you not? Ailments, illness, all of those are your cells not functioning at its right capacity. Now, if you are born perfect, how'd you get messed up?